When it comes to megaprojects, the promises are always massive. Sky-high towers, futuristic cities, game-changing transport. All pitched as the next big thing that'll change the world forever. But what happens when those big dreams crash? Not just delays or budget bumps. We're talking total meltdowns, empty airports, abandoned cities, and billions of dollars gone. Today, we're digging into 10 real-life projects that were supposed to be legendary, but turned into giant warnings instead. From Europe to Africa, Asia to North America, these disasters left behind scars, debt, and hard lessons the world still hasn't fully learned. So let's unpack what really went wrong. Number 10, Berlin Brandenburg Airport, Germany. At first, it sounded like a good idea. Berlin needed a modern international airport, one that could handle growing passenger numbers, replace the older terminals, and symbolize a unified Germany. The plan? Finish it by 2011. Keep it sleek, efficient, German through and through. But what unfolded was anything but. From the start, the project was a mess behind the scenes. Engineers warned that the fire safety system wasn't working, that wiring was wrong, and the automated doors were failing. Deadlines came and went. Construction crews left and returned. By 2012, the airport was nearly finished, but not safe. An opening ceremony was canceled just weeks before takeoff. Every delay made headlines. Every fix created new problems, and the costs kept rising. Originally budgeted at around $2 billion, the final cost shot past $8 billion. 9 years late, the airport finally opened in 2020 to a world mid-pandemic with almost no flights. What should have been a shining gateway to Europe became a global example of how not to manage a megaproject. 9. California High-Speed Rail, United States. In 2008, Californians voted yes to a future that looked like Japan or France. High-speed trains cutting through the Golden State, linking San Francisco to Los Angeles in under 3 hours. No more traffic jams or delayed flights, just clean, fast, reliable rail. 17 years later, there's still no train. The idea was ambitious, a sleek network traveling over 200 miles per hour, built in stages. But almost immediately, the problems started. Farmers resisted. Landowners fought back. Costs ballooned as the project ran into environmental hurdles, lawsuits, and changing political winds. What was once projected to cost $33 billion is now expected to pass $100 billion, with no confirmed date of completion. In 2019, the plan was scaled back to a shorter route through the Central Valley, far from the original vision. Supporters say it's still a work in progress. Critics call it a disaster in slow motion. And today, California's high-speed rail has become a symbol of the gap between dream and delivery. A fast train that hasn't moved an inch. Number 8, Ciudad Real Central Airport, Spain. Imagine building a billion-dollar international airport, and no one shows up. That's exactly what happened in Spain, just outside the small city of Ciudad Real. In the early 2000s, during Spain's construction boom, investors and developers wanted to turn the quiet region into a major travel hub. The idea? Build an airport bigger than the city itself. They claimed it would draw traffic from Madrid and attract tourists from all over Europe. But there was one problem. No one needed it. Madrid already had a massive airport. The high-speed train from Ciudad Real to Madrid made flying unnecessary. And when Spain's economy crashed in 2008, the dream of the airport collapsed with it. Airlines pulled out. The runway, one of Europe's longest, sat empty. By 2012, the airport was bankrupt. Maintenance stopped. Weeds grew through the tarmac, and in a strange twist, the entire facility was auctioned in 2015 for just $10,000. a fraction of the $1.1 billion spent. It remains one of the most shocking failures in aviation history. A monument to ambition with no passengers, no planes, and no plan. If you're enjoying this breakdown of real-life megaproject fails, hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps push this content to more people and keeps these deep dives coming your way. Now, let's jump into the next disaster. Number 7. Ajaokuta Steel Mill, Nigeria. In 1979, Nigeria launched what was supposed to be the heart of its industrial revolution, the Ajaokuta Steel Mill. It was more than just a factory. It was pitched as the future, a self-sufficient industrial town, sprawling across over 24,000 hectares, with the capacity to produce millions of tons of steel every year. The goal? Make Nigeria the backbone of West Africa's steel production. More than 40 years later, not a single beam of commercial steel has been produced. The reasons are many and painful. Successive governments poured in billions of dollars. Russia helped start the project. Then funding stopped. Indian firms were brought in. Then lawsuits began. Corruption, mismanagement, and shifting political priorities buried the dream under layer after layer of bureaucracy. By 2020, nearly $7 billion had been spent on a facility that was rusting away. Workers were still being paid, generators still running, but the factory sat idle. Politicians kept promising revival. None delivered. For many Nigerians, Ajaokuta became more than a failed project. It became a symbol of waste, of betrayal, and of how something meant to build a nation could end up forgotten, frozen in time. Number 6. Naypyitaw Myanmar. One day in 2005, Myanmar's military government quietly moved its capital city without telling the world why. The new city, Naypyitaw, was carved out of jungle nearly 400 kilometers from Yangon, the former capital. It had wide highways, massive government complexes, and even a zoo. Everything except people. The official line was better central location, but satellite images showed more than that. Massive underground bunkers, military bases, and strange architectural choices. Some speculated the move was for strategic or even astrological reasons. What's undeniable is this: billions were spent to build a capital city where no one wanted to live. By 2014, Naypyitaw had the infrastructure for millions. 8-lane roads, hotels, shopping malls, but only a few 100,000 residents. Parliament chambers were often empty. The city's grand buildings stood silent, surrounded by manicured lawns and empty parking lots. Government workers were forced to relocate. Most kept families in Yangon and traveled back every weekend. Even tourists found the city eerie. Too quiet, too perfect, too strange. Today, Naypyitaw remains one of the emptiest capital cities in the world, a surreal monument to secrecy and excess, built not for the people, but for power. 5. Ryuang Hotel, North Korea. It was supposed to be the world's tallest hotel, a glittering pyramid rising 105 stories into the sky, above Pyongyang. Construction began in 1987, during a rare moment when North Korea wanted to compete with the West, this time through architecture. But just 5 years later, the money ran out. The Soviet Union had collapsed. North Korea fell into economic crisis. The Ryuang Hotel was abandoned, unfinished, empty, and quickly nicknamed the Hotel of Doom. For almost 2 decades, it stood untouched. No windows, no interior, just a massive concrete shell towering over a struggling city. It wasn't just a failed building, it was an embarrassment. So much so that the government airbrushed it out of official photos. In 2008, construction restarted with the help from an Egyptian telecom company. They added glass panels and lighting, but still no guests. In 2018, the facade was updated again, with LED displays. But as of 2025, the hotel remains unopened. no rooms, no restaurants, no revenue. It's a skyscraper that never worked. A $750 million monument to pride and isolation. North Korea tried to build a global statement. Instead, they ended up with one of the world's most bizarre abandoned structures, an unfinished dream visible from every corner of the capital. Number 4. Montreal Olympic Stadium, Canada. It was supposed to be the pride of Canada. The 1976 Summer Olympics were heading to Montreal, and with them came plans for a stadium that would rival any in the world. Sleek, futuristic, and ambitious, the Montreal Olympic Stadium would feature a retractable roof and a leaning tower, unlike anything ever built before. But from the moment construction began, things went sideways. Costs exploded. The project was supposed to cost $134 million. It ended up costing over $1.6 billion. Delays plagued every stage. The tower wasn't finished in time for the Olympics. The roof couldn't retract properly. The stadium wasn't even completed until more than a decade after the Games. Then came the nickname, the Big O. Locals eventually changed it to the Big O. To pay off the debt, Quebec introduced a tobacco tax that lasted until 2006, 30 years after the Games ended. That's how long it took just to pay for the stadium. Even after all that, the problems didn't stop. The roof kept tearing. Concrete chunks fell from the ceiling. Maintenance costs piled up. Event organizers avoided the venue. It became more famous for its failures than for anything that actually happened inside. Today, the Montreal Olympic Stadium is a cautionary tale, a grand vision that collapsed under its own weight. A reminder that when ambition races ahead of planning, the finish line can be very far and very expensive. Number 3. Concord Supersonic Jet, United Kingdom and France. In the 1960s, the world was dreaming of the future. Supersonic travel was no longer science fiction. It was the next big thing. Britain and France teamed up to build the Concorde, a sleek, needle-nosed jet that could fly twice the speed of sound, from New York to London in under 3.5 hours. The future had arrived, but not everyone could afford a ticket. The Concorde was a masterpiece of engineering. It cruised at 60,000 feet and could reach speeds over Mach 2, but it was loud, burned an enormous amount of fuel, and carried fewer passengers than a normal jetliner. The ticket price was astronomical, making it a luxury product for the elite. Then came the obstacles. Sonic booms meant it was banned from flying supersonic over land in most countries. Rising fuel prices in the 1970s hurt its economics even more, and though it became iconic, only 20 Concordes were ever built. Only Air France and British Airways operated them. In 2000, a crash during takeoff in Paris killed all on board. Public confidence dropped. Flights resumed briefly, but by 2003, the Concorde was permanently retired. The program cost over $2.5 billion at the time, more than $15 billion today. For decades, it stood as a symbol of speed, elegance, and ultimately, unsustainability. The Concorde proved that just because something is technologically possible doesn't mean it makes sense in the real world. Number 2. Songdo Smart City, South Korea. What if you could build a perfect city from scratch? No traffic jams, no pollution, just sensors, automation, and sustainable design. That was the pitch behind Songdo, South Korea's $40 billion smart city, built on reclaimed land near Incheon. The vision was stunning, every home wired for digital control. Trash moved through underground tunnels, parks, water features, and eco-friendly buildings everywhere. A utopia for urban living, planned from day one to be intelligent and clean. But the city never filled up. Despite the technology and investment, Songdo struggled to attract people. Many found it too expensive. Others said it lacked soul. There were no local communities or organic culture, just towering apartments and empty plazas. Office space sat unrented. Retail never took off. Companies relocated, but workers didn't follow. Families preferred nearby Seoul, where school and social life were more established. Even though Songdo offered everything on paper, it didn't offer what makes a city feel alive. Critics called it a ghost city. Supporters called it ahead of its time. But after over a decade, Songdo remains half full. The dream of the smart city is still alive, but Songdo's story shows a critical truth. You can build all the infrastructure you want, but if people don't connect to it, it doesn't matter how smart it is. Number 1. World Islands, Dubai, UAE. From the sky, it looked like genius, a man-made archipelago shaped like a world map, floating off the coast of Dubai. Investors lined up, celebrities bought islands. The world islands were going to be the most luxurious real estate in the world. But after the initial buzz, everything slowed down, and then stopped. Construction began in 2003. Sand was dredged, islands were sculpted, but building on them proved far harder than expected. Infrastructure was expensive. There were no bridges, no roads. Everything had to be delivered by boat. And then the 2008 financial crisis hit. Developers pulled out. Buyers disappeared. Projects were abandoned. By 2010, most of the islands were still bare sand. Environmental damage mounted. Some reports suggested the islands were slowly sinking or eroding. Even today, most of the 300 islands remain undeveloped. A few properties, like the Heart of Europe Resort, have seen progress, but the grand vision, a globe of private islands, each representing a different country, never came to life. It's a haunting image, an artificial world, empty and crumbling, just miles from Dubai's glittering skyline. The world islands showed how even the most extravagant dreams can run aground when reality catches up. It's easy to look at these failures as separate stories, different countries, different goals, different industries. But when you step back, a clear pattern starts to emerge. These weren't just construction errors or bad luck. The real collapse happened long before the first concrete was poured. It started with overpromising. Grand speeches, flashy renderings, political leaders pushing megaprojects not because they were needed, but because they made headlines. The goal was rarely about practicality, it was about legacy. And when that happens, pressure replaces planning. Budgets ballooned, deadlines shifted, and oversight was often nowhere to be found. In most of these cases, the original cost estimate was a fantasy, whether it was an airport in Germany or a steel mill in Nigeria. Early-stage numbers were based on best-case scenarios, not real-world complexity. Corruption played a role too. In projects like Ajaokuta and the World Islands, funds disappeared. Audits raised red flags, but accountability never followed. Decision-making got tangled between contractors, ministries, and consultants, with no clear responsibility chain. By the time problems were visible, it was too late to fix them without spending billions more. And then there was the human factor. Projects built without listening to the people they were supposed to serve. Cities with no culture, airports with no flyers, infrastructure without users. A megaproject is only as strong as the demand behind it. If that part's missing, the concrete doesn't matter. In the end, these failures weren't about concrete or cables. They were about misalignment between vision and reality, between ambition and execution. And that's the real lesson. When ambition outpaces reality, even the most expensive ideas can fall flat. I'm really grateful for your time and attention. I spend hours digging into facts and shaping them into stories that actually make sense. So, if you appreciate that, it'd mean a lot if you bought me a coffee. It helps me stay energized and keep bringing you deep dives like this. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's next. The Philippines is building an enormous metro system, and it might just rewrite the future of transportation in Southeast Asia.